the long-term consequences of Operation Gauntlet extended beyond its immediate objectives. Although the islands were left empty, the Arctic did not remain quiet for long. Both Allied and German forces would later return to Spitzbergen, primarily to establish weather stations crucial for forecasting conditions over the North Atlantic and Europe. In 1943, German troops briefly occupied parts of the archipelago, prompting another Allied operation, Operation Gearbox, to reassert control. In this sense, Gauntlet was not an end but an opening chapter in the Arctic War, a lesser-known theater where science, geography, and strategy intersected. The operation also highlighted the importance of weather intelligence, an often underestimated factor in the Second World War. Accurate forecasts influenced convoy routes, air raids, amphibious landings, and naval engagements. By denying Germany early access to Arctic weather data, the Allies gained an advantage that extended far beyond Spitzbergen itself. Gauntlet further demonstrated a strategic principle that would be used repeatedly throughout the war: the concept of denial. When holding territory was impractical, destroying its value to the enemy became a rational alternative. This approach was later seen in scorched earth policies across multiple theaters, though rarely executed with such precision and minimal suffering. The human element of Gauntlet deserves special attention. The evacuation of civilians conducted under wartime pressure was handled with care and coordination. Norwegian and Soviet miners, citizens of nations fighting on opposite sides of the war's ideological divide, were evacuated together by Allied forces, a quiet reminder that survival sometimes transcended politics. For the soldiers involved, the operation left a lasting impression. Many veterans recalled the eerie stillness of the Arctic, the surreal sight of empty towns, and the knowledge that their mission was to erase rather than occupy. These memories stood apart from the chaos of later battlefields. In the broader narrative of the Second World War, Operation Gauntlet may seem like a footnote, but it embodies the complexity of global conflict. War was not fought only in trenches and cities, but also in frozen wastelands where resources, information, and timing mattered immensely. Gauntlet succeeded because it aligned clear objectives with realistic means, respected the environment, and prioritized efficiency over glory. It reminds us that history is shaped not only by massive offensives but also by small, well-executed decisions made far from the spotlight. In revisiting Operation Gauntlet, we uncover a story of foresight, cooperation, and strategic restraint, a reminder that sometimes the most effective victories are the ones achieved without firing a shot, in places the world barely noticed, yet whose impact quietly rippled through the course of the war. In the frozen silence of the Arctic, far from Europe's burning cities, a small Allied force launched a daring raid that few remember today. No massive armies clashed, no famous generals took center stage, yet this operation quietly denied Nazi Germany vital resources and proved that even the most remote corners of the world could shape the outcome of the Second World War. This is the story of Operation Gauntlet. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Operation Gauntlet unfolded in the strange, icy isolation of the Svalbard archipelago, known then as Spitzbergen, a desolate group of islands lying far inside the Arctic Circle. At first glance, these islands seemed insignificant, a land of glaciers, coal mines, and long polar nights, inhabited only by a few thousand miners and scientists. Yet in 1941, as the Second World War widened and intensified, Spitzbergen gained strategic importance far beyond its size. Coal mined there fueled industry and shipping, and even more crucially, the islands hosted weather stations whose reports influenced naval and air operations across the North Atlantic. Control of weather intelligence was power, and power in wartime could determine survival. When Nazi Germany occupied Norway in 1940, the Arctic suddenly became a contested frontier. Both sides understood that leaving Spitzbergen undefended created opportunity and danger in equal measure. By mid-1941, the British government feared that Germany might seize the islands, exploit the coal reserves, and establish permanent weather and naval bases. The solution was unconventional. Instead of fortifying Spitzbergen, the Allies chose to deny it to the enemy entirely. This decision gave birth to Operation Gauntlet, a bold evacuation and demolition mission designed to remove civilians, destroy infrastructure, and ensure that nothing of value could fall into German hands. The plan reflected the strategic thinking of the time, when Britain stood stretched across multiple fronts and had to choose denial over occupation. The operation would be led primarily by Canadian troops, supported by British naval forces and Norwegian personnel familiar with the Arctic terrain. For Canada, still asserting its growing role in the war, this would be one of its earliest independent overseas operations, far removed from Europe's battlefields yet symbolically important. As preparations began, planners faced extreme challenges. The Arctic environment was unforgiving, navigation was hazardous, and timing was critical. The operation had to be swift, decisive, and discreet. There would be no room for prolonged fighting or mistakes. Gauntlet was not about conquest but about removal, erasure, and strategic foresight. As Allied ships set sail northward in August 1941, few outside the highest command levels knew of the mission. Fewer still imagined that such a quiet operation would ripple through the broader war effort. The Allied task force reached Spitzbergen under conditions that tested both men and machines. Fog ice and unpredictable seas made navigation treacherous, yet the absence of German forces gave the Allies a narrow window of opportunity. When the Canadians and their British and Norwegian counterparts landed, they found a civilian population largely unprotected and uncertain of what the future held. Norwegian and Soviet miners worked side by side in settlements like Longyearbyen and Barentsburg, bound together by the harsh environment rather than ideology. One of Gauntlet's most remarkable aspects was the cooperation between Allied forces and these civilians. Evacuation had to be orderly, humane, and complete. Nearly 2,000 people were gathered, briefed, and prepared for transport south, away from the Arctic and the looming threat of occupation. Families left behind homes, equipment, and livelihoods, knowing they might never return. While the evacuation proceeded, demolition teams began their work. Coal stocks were destroyed, mining machinery rendered useless, fuel depots burned, and communication facilities dismantled. The goal was total denial. Nothing of operational value could remain. Fires lit against the Arctic backdrop sent smoke rising into the cold air, visible symbols of a land being deliberately stripped of usefulness. Despite the scale of destruction, there was no chaos. Discipline and planning prevailed, a testament to the professionalism of the troops involved. The Canadians, many experiencing Arctic conditions for the first time, adapted quickly, learning from Norwegian guides who understood the land intimately. Throughout the operation, there was a constant awareness of vulnerability. German naval units and aircraft operated in nearby waters, and a sudden encounter could have turned Gauntlet into a desperate fight. Yet luck and secrecy held. The German High Command, preoccupied with Operation Barbarossa and the massive invasion of the Soviet Union, paid little attention to Spitzbergen at that moment. When the evacuation was complete and demolitions finished, the Allied forces withdrew as swiftly as they had arrived, leaving behind empty settlements and smoldering ruins. Operation Gauntlet concluded without a single casualty, an almost unheard-of outcome in wartime operations. Its success lay not in dramatic combat but in flawless execution. Strategically, the operation achieved its purpose. Germany was denied access to coal, weather stations, and Arctic bases, at least temporarily. More importantly, Gauntlet demonstrated Allied reach and initiative, proving that even remote territories were part of the global conflict. For Canada, the operation carried deep significance. It showcased Canadian troops operating independently, reinforcing national confidence and international credibility. The quiet professionalism displayed in Spitzbergen would echo later in more famous campaigns. Yet despite its success, Operation Gauntlet slipped into relative obscurity, overshadowed by larger battles and grander narratives. Its very nature, silent and bloodless, made it easy to overlook in a war defined by devastation,